My name is Eva Tompkins, and today I'll be speaking about digital IDs and the mark of the beast. These are important topics for our time because we're seeing them put in place around the world. So who am I and why should you listen to me? My name is Eva Tompkins. I'm a New York attorney. I worked for a law firm in New York for 20 years, but now I've retired from the practice of law and I trade currencies and equity and commodity futures. And so I follow the central banks and I follow what these world organizations are doing to restrict our freedoms, and I'll show you that. So this is just for educational purposes. This is not financial, investment, or legal advice. I'm not asking you to or giving advice on what you should do with any of your assets, so please don't take it as that. This is just educational. At the outset, it's important to note that the mark of the beast is not here yet. As students of the Bible, we know that the mark of the beast is coming, but it's not likely a digital ID or something inserted in your palm or in your forehead, and it's not here yet. We know that because Revelation 13, particularly verses 4 through 8 and 11 through 17, and chapter 14, verses 9 through 10, describe the two beasts and the mark of the beast, and they reveal that the mark of the beast involves worship. So let's look at those verses just to refresh ourselves. So Revelation 13, 4 through 8 says, "And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. And all that dwell on the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world." And then the next verses, 11 through 15, state, "And I beheld another beast coming out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake like as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, and that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many who would not worship the image of the beast should be killed." So we know that there's going to be a death penalty against those who do not worship the image of the beast. And we don't have that yet. So we don't have the mark of the beast yet. And then verses 16 and 17 say, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name." And I wrote a Substack at Revelation 13:17, cbdcwatch.substack.com, where I talk more in depth about these issues. Revelation 14, 9 through 10 also states, "And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb." So this is clearly, the mark of the beast involves worship. So we don't have the mark of the beast yet because we know that right now we're not under any compulsion to worship any particular authority. So we know that we're not there yet and we don't have the mark of the beast yet. What are CBDCs? So central bank digital currency, or CBDC, is fully programmable, fully traceable digital currency that's centralized and distributed by a government or its central bank. Because it is centralized to one authority, as opposed to being decentralized, it's fully controlled and programmed by the authority that issues it. This means that the government can surveil all financial transactions and financially control when, where, and upon what you can spend the currency that's issued to you. CBDCs, when they're implemented, will have to be tied to a national digital ID. With CBDCs, the government would have the authority to decide and the power to enforce how you may or may not spend the CBDC that's assigned to your digital wallet, which would be tied to your digital ID. And it's important to note that CBDCs are designed to financially constrain the user in any way that the government wishes to constrain the user and to elicit whatever behavior it wants from the user. And you can see that by the control that they have, how they can financially squeeze you to do or not do behavior that they designate. And it's not just me saying this. The Bank of International Settlements General Manager, Augustus Carstens, in October 2020 was describing the difference between cash and digital currency. And he stated the central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability and will have the technology to enforce that. Also, Neil Kashkari, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, has said that CBDC doesn't solve any actual problems other than enable central bankers to, one, monitor all transactions, impose negative interest rates, which would be a deduction from your digital wallet, and deduct taxes directly from people's accounts in real time. And he actually said when he was asked about CBDCs, I keep asking anybody at the Fed or outside the Fed to explain to me what problem this is solving. I can send anybody in this room $5 with Venmo right now. And he heard some laughter in the background. He said, right? No, seriously. So what is it that a CBDC could do that Venmo can't do? And all I get is a bunch of hand waving. Well, China's doing it. Well, I see why China would do it. If they want to monitor every one of your transactions, you could do that with a central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. If you want to impose negative interest rates, you could do that with a central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. And if you want to directly tax customer accounts, you could do that with a central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. So I get why China would be interested, but why would the American people be for that? The American people wouldn't be for that, nor would the Canadian people be for that, I'm quite sure. Because we enjoy freedom, we respect freedom, we want freedom for ourselves and for our families, and CBDC is a way for the government to take away freedom. Steve Forbes has also said government digital cash is a formula for tyranny. So, according to data from the Atlantic Council, as of March 2024, 134 countries and currency unions representing 90% of global GDP are exploring a CBDC. In May 2020, that number was only 35. So we've seen a clear jump around the world of countries and currency unions who are actively researching and developing central bank digital currency. So a central bank digital currency, because it's a digital form of that country's fiat currency, it's regulated by its central bank, and to access and use it, you would have to have a digital wallet and a digital ID. Those things would be necessary when the country issues the CBDC. A digital wallet is software or program or app that allows users to store, send, and receive digital currencies, including CBDCs. Digital wallets can be connected to a user's digital ID, which verifies identity and ensures secure transactions. A digital ID is a digital representation of a person's identity, which is used to authenticate and verify their identity online. For CBDCs, digital IDs are essential for account-based retail CBDCs, which require users to have a digital ID to access their account and make transactions. Digital ID proponents claim that digital IDs offer security, convenience, and accessibility, but really they offer the authority who issues it control. And Bill Gates has said recently, everyone must have a digital ID. In August 2023, in a tweet on X, Bill Gates complained that 850 million people lack ID that proves their identity. As a result, they're shut out of a lot of services that could change their lives. So by implication, he's saying that if you don't have a digital ID, you may not be able to access services. And this is from the website on the Gates Foundation website. Our global identity problem. If a person cannot prove who they are, can they take advantage of all the opportunities society has to offer? For the 850 million people around the world who lack any acceptable form of legal identity, the answer is no. according to the Gates Foundation. It eases access to employment and education, as well as services such as banking, government programs, and healthcare. So he's suggesting that if you don't have a digital ID, you could not possibly receive services such as banking, government programs, or healthcare, which is ridiculous because we have been giving those services out to people without digital IDs for decades, in fact, probably centuries. So we can help people without them having a digital ID. We've proven that in history. We don't need a digital ID for that. But he's suggesting you need one. The Rockefeller Foundation is also pushing for digital public infrastructure. Digital public infrastructure is what they consider to be a system using central bank digital currency, or CBDCs, digital IDs, and a massive data exchange around the world. And their program, Co-Develop, is pushing for a global opportunity for this system of adoption. On November 8th, 2023, the United Nations, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and partners of the Rockefeller Foundation took part in a virtual launch event for their 50 in 5 agenda, which is a campaign to accelerate digital ID, digital payments, and data sharing rollouts in 50 countries, creating digital public infrastructures in those countries by 2028. So who is pushing for these digital IDs? It's ultimately coming from the United Nations, specifically their Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. The SDGs mandate digital IDs in every country by 2030. The 4 entities that are most involved in accelerating digital IDs are the United Nations through their development program, UNDP, the World Bank, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the Rockefeller Foundation. And here you can see they were tweeting about their digital public infrastructure and their 50 in 5 program. So the 50 in 5 agenda, it really aims to exact technocratic control over populations through digital ID, or digital payments as you see here, digital IDs, and then data exchange. And this is from the 50 in 5 website. Digital public infrastructure, which refers to a secure and interoperable network of components that include digital payments, ID, and data exchange systems, is essential for participation in markets and society in a digital era, according to this website, according to the UN. According to the UN, DPI is needed for all countries to build resilient and innovative economies, as also for the welfare of the people. But I question that. So the United States Development Program on their website, they also have this paper which you can download and read. It's a strategy for pushing digital IDs around the world. Says the editor of The Sociable, Tim Hinchcliffe, advocates are adamant that DPI is essential for participation in markets and society, just like we saw with vaccine passports, only on a much broader scope. If successful, DPI will give governments and corporations the power to implement systems of social credit that can determine where and how you can travel, what you're allowed to consume, and how you will be able to transact with your programmable money. And we see that through CBDCs and other systems and the vaccine passports that they were trying to force people to receive during the pandemic. In the United States, in June 2023, the Transportation Security Administration, the TSA, began accepting state-issued driver's license and ID cards in various digital wallets, including Google Wallet, Apple Wallet, Samsung Wallet, Utah's Get Mobile ID app, California's DMV Wallet app, and Iowa's Mobile ID app, as well as American Airlines Digital ID app. And they were allowing those at select TSA security and pre-check checkpoints. According to the TSA website, to date, participation is optional and you must still carry your physical ID as needed. So they haven't totally gone digital, but they are starting at TSA in the United States. An involuntary form of digital ID is facial recognition. In Atlanta, Georgia, in September 2023, the city of Atlanta introduced a facial recognition-equipped robot dog to roam around and patrol Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Benzie the drone dog was designed by Boston Dynamics and developed by Asylon Robotics. Benzie autonomously patrols 11 acres and sends back real-time video during 30-minute shifts. The video feed has 1080p color and night vision capabilities. So it's quite an advanced little robot dog that goes around involuntarily taking your picture without your permission. Also, an unnamed casino in California is using a robot equipped with facial recognition technology to identify high rollers, advantage players, and known trespassers, says the manufacturer Nightscope in a news release. In Canada, according to research from Joanna Redden, associate professor at Western University in London, Ontario, Canada's government has used AI in 303 projects and initiatives, including criminal investigations and temporary visa application sorting. Redden compiled a database of 303 AI tools into a register and found that 95% were used by federal agencies. So, and she also said there needs to be far more public debate about what kinds of systems should be in use, and there needs to be more public information available about how these systems are being used, she said in an interview with CBC. Facial recognition is also used by the Canada Border Services Agency, CBSA. A spokesperson said the agency uses technology on a voluntary basis to help authenticate the identities of incoming travelers through kiosks at some airports. And Redden also suggested there's a lot of reasons to question the use of facial recognition, including examples that we've seen in the United States where it's led to wrongful arrests. I received this notice from Google Play recently. In Google Play, apparently you can set biometrics, your fingerprint or your face, as your purchase verification method on mobile devices if you choose to. I'm not choosing to do this, and I would suggest if you want to avoid this type of system, you don't agree to these verification methods as well. So what can we do? Well, we can avoid being reliant on the control grid elements as much as possible and avoid having to use them as much as possible. That includes CBDCs, digital IDs, vaccine passports. Avoid being issued them or avoid using them voluntarily. And also, if you can avoid using non-cash methods of payment and use cash instead, we can somewhat try to thwart this agenda that's being foisted and pushed around the world. What else can we do? We can contact our elected officials and ask them to introduce or support legislation that will protect our rights to continue to use physical IDs or physical identity credentials. We can also plan for the possibility that the physical IDs may be phased out and you might be required to use digital IDs. Try to find legal ways to circumvent the restrictions that may be imposed once digital IDs are implemented and tied to everything that we do, including accessing the internet, conducting banking transactions, paying taxes, or accessing government services. So we can try to do that. But ultimately, we know that the Bible predicts that this type of financial repression and control will be in place by the verse Revelation 13:17. You can also try getting rid of your Wi-Fi router and hardwiring your home for internet. That will cut down on the opportunities for surveillance in your home. Also, if you throw out your smart TV, that will also increase your privacy and reduce the amount of surveillance in your home. Because if you read the terms and conditions on your smart TV, you'll find that you give them the right to film you and photograph you in your home. But we know that at some point we will be under this type of financial repression, so it's good now to find and buy food from a local farmer. If you make relationships with local farmers and buy your food from a local farmer, you can be less dependent on the major supermarket chains. And you'll be better off in the long run if our rights to spend currency or our rights to purchase things will be squeezed or will be restricted. Also, I encourage people to learn foraging skills, because if you're in a situation where you can't buy food or can't access food for any reason because of your digital ID or because of some reason that the government wants to do that, and constrict you in that way, there's many native plants that are readily available around us that are safe to eat, nutritious, rich in vitamins, and have medicinal properties. So I would find books on that subject and study that and get to know the plants in your area that you could depend on for food in case of a crisis. So are we ready for the coming tribulation? I suggest that people pray and read the Bible daily and don't fall into Satan's snare. Satan knows well all that he can lead to neglect prayer and searching of the scriptures, and will be overcome by his attacks. Therefore, he invents every possible device to engross the mind. And Ellen White said that in The Great Controversy. It's quite striking for our time today, where we do have all these devices that distract us from reading and praying. It's important to remember that God will provide for us. In any type of crisis situation, if our ability to buy or sell is squeezed, God will provide. And Ellen G. White says in the Ministry of Healing, have confidence in him as a prayer-hearing, prayer-answering God. He will reveal himself to you as one who can help in every emergency. He who created man, who gave him his wonderful physical, mental, and spiritual faculties, will not withhold that which is necessary to sustain the life he has given. He who has given us his word, the leaves of the tree of life, will not withhold from us the knowledge of how to provide food for his needy children. And most importantly, do not be afraid. God does not want us to have a spirit of fear. And in John 16:33, we read, "These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." So that's the information I have to share with you today about digital IDs and the mark of the beast. We're not quite there yet with both digital IDs and the mark of the beast. We're starting to see them rolled out increasingly around the world. But the more that we can depend on God and pray to him and seek his guidance, the better off we'll be in the times coming ahead.